So we are together, we're going to try to give you as much information as possible so that you can make a decision as to whether you want to take a UX design program at York University. So you know what, with that being said, and Rahim, did you want to just quickly say hello?
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Rahim. Thanks for the intro, Marina, and I look forward to answering your questions. Try to make this as interactive as possible. If you can ask any questions during the session on the chat, feel free, and we'll try to get through as many as we can.
Yep, that's a really good point. So what we can do is I can try to, if when Rahim is speaking, I'll be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions that come up, please feel free. But we have reserved some time at the end where we can answer all of your questions. So let's get started. So moving on with the presentation, this is the agenda. So we will talk about York University and the School of Continuing Studies, and Rahim and I are going to be sharing the presentation. He'll be doing some of the more technical slides, of course, because he's a subject matter expert, and I will be doing some of the more administrative things. We'll talk about why choose the School of Continuing Studies at York University. What is the T-shaped professional? What is UX design, and what are the job projections for the field? Rahim is going to give us a special presentation, and I think you're going to really enjoy his presentation. He's going to showcase some of the work that some of our students have done in the program. We'll talk about the learning format, we'll talk about the schedule, we'll give you information on how to register for the program, and then we've reserved some time at the end for a Q&A. So just this is real boilerplate kind of info, but I'd love to talk, talking about York University and really about the fact that we are the third largest institution in Canada. For those that are not familiar with York University, we have world-class rankings, and our school, which is the School of Continuing Studies, it was founded on the principles of designing cutting-edge programs. So I think what you're going to see here today is that we do have a really, really innovative UX design program, and that you're really going to enjoy the presentation. We have like lots of staff and faculty across campus, 53,000 students, 12,000 students that are international, that come from 178 different countries. Now, why choose the Certificate in User Experience Design at York University School of Continuing Studies? The first thing is that we have designed a very innovative blended delivery format. So the advantage of having it blended, and for those of you that don't understand what blended means, it really means that it is a combination of online asynchronous work with 2 live full-day sessions on Zoom. And that provides you with lots of flexibility, because the majority of the time that you're online and on the weekend, the actual live Zoom dates are on the weekend, so that it wouldn't interfere with your work. But it really suits everybody's schedule. It's part-time. It allows you to balance different priorities. It's a condensed program, so it's shorter than many other programs. It's over 8 months, and you'll be able to strengthen and really validate your UX skill set in an 8-month period. The program, third thing, very unique, it's in a cohort fashion. So it's the same group of students that start and finish and progress through the program together. So that helps you build connections with other students, an amazing community of practice. You can build lots of support networks, you can form study groups. There's a lot of stability in scheduling, and I know this is very, very important. Sometimes when you take programs at other institutions where it's offered on a course-by-course basis, then you're not really you don't know if the next course is going to be offered because there won't be enough students, etc. Well, here in our program, you're going to get all 4 courses guaranteed. The curriculum was designed so that it flows logically from one course to the next. The next is that the next feature is that you're going to build a portfolio of work that Rahim is going to go into detail and talk a lot about with a real client. So the fact that students are working with a real client on a real project rather than working on just like a fictitious case study is pretty huge. So that's a huge advantage. And also then once you finish this portfolio piece, and a lot of other of the assessments in the program can actually be used when you're interviewing for a new job to showcase some of the skills that you have. And Rahim is going to talk more about that, the importance of that. And then lastly, instructors are all from industry. Rahim, he'll talk a lot about, what he does for, full-time. This is not what he does full-time. He is a UX designer by trade full-time. They can apply all of the things that they're learning on the job. They bring them into the classroom, give real examples, help students make connections, and really, it's really important because that way we can stay, the students can all stay current in the field. So in terms of what is the T-shaped professional? So the T-shaped professional is something that we actually build into every single one of the programs that we offer at the School of Continuing Studies, whether it be UX design, whether it be cybersecurity, human resources management. We enable our students to function as a T-shaped professional once they graduate. And really what that means is at the bottom of the T, we will teach you how to do the core skills of the job. Right? In this case, it's UX design. So we're going to talk about, you're going to be learning all of the tech skills that you're going to need to be a UX designer, but also we're going to teach you all those really important cross-functional skills that are really required to succeed in a career in UX. Okay, things like good communication skills, things like working dynamically on teams, presenting, having impactful presentations. All those kinds of things, and Rahim will talk more about cross-functional skills later in the presentation. But I just kind of wanted to to outline that this is very, very important for the School of Continuing Studies to develop programs that really will enable and graduate all of our students to become T-shaped professionals. So I'm going to turn it over to Rahim, who's going to be talking about what is UX design. Rahim?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Hey, yeah, so first of all, thank you for Marina for the introduction. Now, all of you obviously are here because you want to either understand more about UX design or wanting to basically start a career path in UX design. So UX design is essentially understanding the experiences of a product. Now, it could be digital, it could potentially be physical when you think about a physical product with a screen. So it's kind of understanding the user experience of what a digital product essentially is. Now there's more to it. You go to a website like Instagram, or you go on an app like Instagram or a website like Facebook online, and it seems pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of meticulous details and thoughts that go into every little detail that goes into these websites. And that's kind of the course, what the course is trying to attempt to teach, as well as trying to understand what the world of UX is all about. Next slide, please. So the job market, I mean, as you know, even in the last little span of during the pandemic, the UX market has definitely blown up a lot, because if you can think about, the government has been hiring a lot because everything primarily has gone digital, right? So if you think about, the prospect of job opportunities down the road, there's a lot of opportunity within the field of UX. It's definitely blown up within the design world in terms of, all the different aspects of design, architecture, industrial design. My background originally is in industrial design, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And I actually pivoted my career more into UX design because it actually, I'll tell you more about my background in a second, but essentially when I was living in San Francisco, I learned that, industrial design, that's what I went to school for originally, is physical product design. And the job opportunities at the time, back in 2011, 2012, 2013, there weren't a lot of opportunities within that space. So my mentor ended up exposing me to the world of UX. And at the time, coming from a world of creating 3D products to going down to 2D products, to be completely transparent, I wasn't that enthusiastic about it. But as I further, grew my career into the world of UX, I became more confident. It became more apparent that it is an opportunity. It is a industry that's definitely not going anywhere. There's a lot of opportunities. Everyone needs an app these days. Everyone needs a well-designed website. The government right now is hiring a lot, because as you have interacted with the government websites, it's not probably to be I'm biased, but I definitely think the user experience can definitely improve in a lot of government websites. So the hiring, there's no shortage of jobs within the space. Now the challenge is just positioning yourself on what aspect of the UX world you're good at, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please. So yeah, I'm going to briefly talk about myself, my journey within design, the program structure, the course that I teach, which is the last course out of the 4, Applied UX, and then some student case studies. Next slide, please. So my background, so I've been very fortunate. I've been creative as a child. My parents didn't believe in video games, so they gave me Lego instead. I started my career at Carleton University, studied industrial design. Basically, while I was there, I designed this one product. It was basically a shoe bag that I used the power of ultraviolet light to kill odor in your shoes, and I got a lot of publicity for that. Was interviewed on the Discovery Channel and came top 10 internationally in the James Dyson Award. Got an opportunity to speak at a really well-known design conference in South Africa in Cape Town in 2012 called Design Indaba. And I am very obsessed with design, and design is part of my DNA. In terms of my process, and I brought this process up on the slide because, you know, one of the other values of this program is that the people that actually created the curriculum, including myself and the other 3 instructors, we're all practicing professionals. So we thought it would be really important, and it was a great opportunity for us to design the curriculum from scratch in terms of including things that are relevant to getting a job to the current workplace. I was actually having a chat with my boss this morning, and we kind of went on this tangent about, you know, when I went to school at Carleton, you know, and nothing against them, but the professors have been, you know, there for 20 years, for 10 years, right? And they unfortunately don't have the practical experience of what's actually happening in the job space. When I studied in San Francisco, my professors, and I completed an MBA in design strategy, my professors were working at Facebook, were working at Google Ventures, and so on and so forth. So you actually get to understand what's actually happening in the world. And, you know, 2 of the professors work at Shopify, one works at Digital Loblaws, and myself, I just joined a company called Verisent. So we're all practicing and we're preaching what we teach, which is really important, right? It's not just frameworks, it's not just do this, do that. It's really getting you immersed in what we're actually learning and doing on a day-to-day basis for you to actually know, you know, what the marketplace looks like when you are applying for jobs. So nothing is a surprise. Next slide, please. So yeah, like I said, I studied industrial design and minored in business in Ottawa, Canada. At that time, I took a year off and I worked at a couple of design firms in Toronto doing physical design in terms of doing office furniture design and soft goods. At that time, I really got exposed to a book called The Design of Business, and that's where I started understanding there's more to design than just the craft. I applied to a program in San Francisco pretty spontaneously called the California College of the Arts. It's a private art school, and pursued an MBA in design strategy. And this really exposed me to the world of UX and design strategy. And I'll talk more about how I've incorporated that into the course. Next slide, please. So in terms of my journey, I mean, I was really grateful to start my journey really early. I had the opportunity to get exposed to design in high school. So I had the opportunity to do summer co-op and then worked at a couple of design firms as an industrial designer. And then I moved to San Francisco back in 2011. I came back to Toronto at the end of 2017. So I spent about 6 years in the Bay Area. I had my own startup. It failed. I could talk about that in a second. Worked at Samsung's Digital Innovation Lab and then kind of pivoted into the world of UX at 2 different agencies. And then I came back to Toronto and worked at a couple of companies there. Next slide, please. So in terms of the program outline, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Once again, all of this information is on the website, but I'm just going to kind of break it down. So the way this course has been structured is that Carmen, he works at Loblaws Digital, if I'm not mistaken, unless he moved recently. But he teaches all about the fundamentals of UX design. And now what this means is he kind of breaks it down into understanding all the components and kind of gets your feet wet at all the aspects of design in terms of user research, design research, visual design, wireframing, prototyping, and all that. And then I'll talk about what I do at the end, which is basically putting all this together. Design research, that's all about talking to your stakeholders. Design research, for me, is fundamental in the process of design, because if you don't know who you're designing for, if you don't understand your stakeholders, if you don't understand the problem you're actually solving for, everything you're doing is a complete waste of time. So you can have like the most amazing visual design skills. I know a lot of you are graphic designers, so you may know this, or you probably know this, but you really need to understand the problem and identify what it is you're trying to solve for, as well as understanding your users. Once you have that figured out, it's pretty smooth sailing from there, and you can start executing. Philippe works at Shopify. He teaches visual design, wireframing, prototyping. So I would say the first two courses are more on the analytical side, and then you start getting your hands dirty in the second half of the program. So you dive into Figma, you dive into the programs, you start creating prototypes, and a lot of these projects that you do will end up in your portfolio, and I'll touch on that in a second. Coming back to my course, Applied UX. So when I was developing this course, one of the pain points I realized when I was in design school was that you do all these fictitious projects. You know, you're not working with a real client or a real business, and you put this in your portfolio, and then you try getting a job. And I've been through this, so I'm preaching what I'm talking about. And there's a disconnect, right? Because you haven't had the soft skills that you've developed by working with a real client, really understanding what the needs are, what the business needs are, and really understanding what you're solving for. So that's what I try to accomplish in my course. So what I actually do is, and I'm really grateful for my network in the Bay Area and Toronto, I try to find real clients, real businesses. We even had Home Depot last time around, but I like working with small businesses because they're very grateful for obviously getting the free website or app that you're going to be developing, and it's a win for everyone, right? You're helping the small business, and you get an amazing portfolio piece and an experience at the end of this. Next slide, please. So just a breakdown of my course. So I've taught this since February of 2020, and including right now, I've dealt with 34 clients, which is pretty ridiculous. So the way this works is within the 7-8 weeks, you have a kickoff call. So the course begins with, like Marina mentioned, 8 hours on Zoom. I try to make it as interactive as possible. You know, I try to bring in guest speakers, which are friends from San Francisco. I've had friends that work at Uber, Slack, the Canadian government, Twitter. So I just have my friends kind of, you know, take about 20 minutes or 30 minutes of their time to kind of just, you know, share their experiences in terms of if they were in your shoes, you know, starting off their career, what would they do and all that. So then I've kind of partnered the teams up into various groups, and these groups are essentially your team for the remainder of the course, which is about 7-8 weeks. So you partner up with a client. I vetted all the clients, so I am well aware there's no surprises. They all know what they're getting themselves into. You guys know what you're getting yourselves into. So we have a kickoff call. So one of the things, like I mentioned, you know, when you're working with a real client, you want to develop these soft skills in terms of, you know, just the project management skills, how to interact with the client, being respectful, and all that fun stuff. So we have a kickoff call. This is essentially, you know, introducing yourselves, letting the client know what your background is. The teams are also broken into what you enjoy doing, right? So going back to the portfolio, you know, it's you know, you look on LinkedIn for UX jobs, it's very vague, right? It's not very specific. But what I try to understand and what I teach is every designer needs to understand what their superpower is. So whether that is visual design skills, whether that's design research, whether that's prototyping, whether that's UI, whether that's just general UX, my goal in this course is for you to understand what is your superpower. You know, and you might also realize that, okay, so maybe I don't like visual design as much as I like design research. So it's also uncovering what you're good at. So we try to break out the teams in terms of a diverse group. So, you know, you'll have someone lead the visual design, you'll have someone lead the UX, you'll have someone lead the design research. So the teams are very broken out. Obviously, everyone's doing a little bit of everything, but we have these people kind of lead this practice within their group. So following the design kickoff call, we have a design brief. A design brief is a simple document that entails, you know, what it is you're going to be doing for the next week. It's a project management tool. So I just want to make sure everything is, you know, legit. There's no surprises when a client's like, oh, I expected this and you did this, and then you refer back to the design brief and you basically say, nope, this is what we were supposed to do and this is exactly what we delivered. Then we break down design research. So the majority of the course, 2 weeks are spent on design research. So this is really understanding the problem that your business or your client has. It's validating it, it's doing primary research, which is talking to real human beings. It's doing secondary research, which is, you know, looking at competitors, looking at the business landscape, and really understanding what is the problem you're trying to solve. Now, what I try to sprinkle in terms of my experience is business and design. And what does that mean? That means, you know, one thing that I really want to empower people that I teach and designers in general is not just understanding your craft, but really taking an interest in terms of understanding and having that business acumen in terms of understanding business models. What is a business model? A business model is, you know, if you look at Uber, the business model for Uber is you have the driver and you have the passenger, right? Uber makes money through taking a cut through what the driver, I can't remember if it's 20% or 10%, but they take a cut of the business, right? Or the passenger's fare. Same with Airbnb, right? You rent out your house or your apartment, Airbnb takes a cut. So that's understanding a business model from a design perspective. Now, why is that important? Because from the Uber perspective, you're designing potentially an app experience for the driver and for the passenger. If you don't understand the business model, you don't really know what you're doing, right? So I really make this apparent to them to try to understand what is it that the business is trying to do. And we do these frameworks called the business model canvas, which is essentially from a creative point of view, understanding, what are the different aspects of a business? Like, where do they bring in the revenue? Where's the marketing coming from? So we spend a week on that. Now, all of these things is co-creation. So we work with the client. These students have a minimum of an hour interaction with the clients every week. They put together a presentation. They show their progress every week, and it's co-creation. So it's not designing it siloed. It's working with their client and try to create value for them. Following that, then we then we get into the design stuff. So, you're probably wondering, okay, so it's like week 3, week 4, I haven't even opened up Figma or Photoshop. And that's intentional because I want to really preach that design is fundamentally understanding the problem and really figuring out what is it that you're doing. Once you have that sorted out, then you can dive into execution and start creating value. A lot of designers, especially in design school, they teach you the craft, but from my experience having an MBA in design strategy and working in Silicon Valley and been around the block for about a decade and plus, I've learned that a lot of designers, they tend not to progress as quickly in their career because they don't really, not to say they don't value the business aspects of design, but it's something that they're not taught. So I want to make sure I could at least incorporate that as much as I possibly can in this course. So following that, we finally dive into them designing 3 visual design concepts, whether it's an app or a website, depending on who the client is. And then we have them create a working prototype, do user testing, and then on the final Sunday or Saturday, whenever the course is organized, we have a Zoom call with right now we have 10 clients. Everyone presents their entire journey from back and forth, from the kickoff call to what their design brief had, what they learned in their design research, what the business model canvas they learned from the business design aspect, the 3 visual concepts, which concept got chosen, the prototype, the user testing, and then the final product. So it is a lot to uncover, but almost all of this stuff is taught in the first 3 courses. And you feel confident enough to now execute and actually do something tangible. So this is literally me throwing you in the deep end, but believe me, after an experience of working with a client, a lot of the feedback that I've received from the students is that they're really grateful for working with a real client because they're able to showcase their skills with a client that doesn't really know anything about UX. So right at this point, you guys are the experts because you've spent already 6 months learning about, the intro to UX, the design research, the UI, the prototyping, the visual design. And then when you come to me, it's like, let's put this all together. Next slide, please. So some of the examples from students. So like I said, I want to help the community. As I find this really fulfilling for me because I'm able to reach out to clients that are local businesses that, are suffering through COVID. So I feel really grateful to help these clients, and the students are really excited to work with them to create value and add value to their business. So for example, ironically enough, back, I believe it was August, I went to a local kebab shop in Toronto, started talking to the owner, and I'm like, hey, you might be a good fit for my class. So what was really cool about them is that, they're a kebab shop, they're a family-owned business from Afghanistan. Their dream and goal was to start a business. Then COVID hit, and unfortunately, they were affected by the business. But one of the things that we started doing, and I started working with the students as well, was what can we uncover with your business? So what we ended up doing was actually creating their website on Shopify. And what they do now is they actually sell their sauces online and hopefully frozen kebabs. So now not only are they making revenue from their business, which is a retail establishment and, selling their food on Uber Eats and all that stuff, but they're also exposing themselves to commerce and selling their sauces and selling their frozen kebabs to add more revenue to the business. So this was all uncovered through the course. He was really grateful for this opportunity, and the entire students, like, I didn't do anything, I just guide them. So the other thing what I do is every Sundays, I have about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and I spend at least that amount of time with each group. Obviously, it's impossible for me to be on every single call with these students. I try to pop in here and there if they need me, but I do give my guidance and my feedback on the entire process from my experience, just to make sure everyone's aligned and they're making the right decisions. Next slide, please. Here is another client. This was actually a friend of mine. He actually lives in the UK. I'm also really into Islamic geometry. I design products on the side for the Aga Khan Museum, coasters and bookmarks. So he was a friend of mine, and he was actually supposed to come to Toronto last year to teach a workshop, but the pandemic happened. I got chatting with him. His job, what he actually does is he's world renowned in the art of Islamic geometry. So what he does is he travels to various Muslim influenced countries like Spain, Morocco, Dubai, and he teaches these workshops, and he's very viral on Instagram. He has over 20,000 followers. So people, fly to these places and attend his workshops. I actually was fortunate enough to attend one of his workshops in New York in 2019. So anyways, we got chatting, and I'm like, hey, your website's awful, to be completely transparent, Adam, but how about my students, work on your website? So what was really interesting about his business is obviously he got affected because he couldn't travel, but I shouldn't be sharing this, but he made over $50,000 in revenue the first couple of months just teaching his course on Zoom. So I'm like, this is really interesting. Let's expose this a little bit more, and let's work on a better website where you can actually sell your classes. You can sell past classes. You could also sell your artwork. So the students did a tremendous job on his website, and he is making a lot of money now. So that makes me happy. Next slide, please. Here's another world-renowned architect, Farooq Nurmahmed. He's designed, this is actually one of the mosques he designed in Tajikistan, in Korog, in Central Asia. He's 73 years old. His wife is an interior designer. His daughter is a good friend of mine. And they've absolutely crushed it in their career, but their website was absolute garbage, to be completely transparent. He actually said that. All of his clients were through word of mouth just because of the reputation. And my students took a stab at designing his website, and this is basically what they came up with. And they just crushed it. So you can see with these client projects, you're being thrown in the deep end, you're understanding the business, you're understanding the problem, and you're executing on the client's needs by the end of this engagement. Next slide, please. I think that's pretty much it from my end. Yeah, so in terms of the instructors, like I said, they're all practicing designers from various companies, Maripost, Shopify, Shopify, Loblaws Digital, Versa, and myself. So everyone here is super passionate about what they do, and we teach what we preach. Next slide, please.
Okay, yeah, maybe
you want to talk about this?
No, actually, maybe it would be good for you to talk about it, and then I'll take over after that.
Yeah, for sure. So who should take this program? So like I said, whether you're transitioning or wanting to transition to UX design, or you are in a product management role or a consulting role, and you just want to get further exposure to this world, I would recommend both ends of the coin. Makes sense for you to take this program because you're going to dive deep into understanding it, as well as you will get that practical knowledge of working with a real client, which is very, very important. I myself actually took a course in General Assembly in 2016 or 2015 in San Francisco. So I do have that experience in terms of understanding the differences between the courses and the programs. And the way we've kind of created this program is, number one, you get that real life experience with a real client, as well as it is a certificate program at a known university, York University. So you have that prestige there. Marina, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no. I think you covered everything really, really well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Okay, so I'll talk about the program structure. So I think that Rahim alluded to some of this, but it is part-time online blended, which means it's a blend of asynchronous and live online. And I mentioned earlier that you can balance professional and personal commitments. You can complete the program in 8 months, which means that you can log in, study, participate in your discussions in your online course forum. You submit your work, you talk to your instructor, and you log off when you need to. There are 8 required live online sessions held on a Saturday or a Sunday. There may be other live touch points as well throughout the program. It really depends on the instructor. The instructor sometimes has other like 1 hour kind of office hour type thing. I wanted to let you know that aside from all the amazing stuff that Rahim talked about, throughout the program, we're also going to try to offer events and workshops that are going to make your experience much more successful. For example, Rahim touched on the fact that he has guest speakers that he interviews and he invites to come to speak to the students. There's other instructors that do the exact same things. They have panel discussion opportunities. We also have, I wanted to outline 10,000 Coffees, which is a platform. For those that don't know what that is, it's a platform that makes data-driven connections between colleagues over virtual coffee chats. And so this is a partnership that York University has with RBC, and students that are York University students and School of Continuing Studies students, they all can sign up, and artificial intelligence then matches you with an industry professional that you can connect with and that you could talk to about the profession. We also have an entrepreneurship opportunity through Innovation York. Now, once you're finished the program, and you're interested in exploring the world of entrepreneurship, and you have an idea that you know would make a really great business venture, you can turn that idea into reality with Innovation York's entrepreneurship initiative. Now, it's a 6-month program that happens after you finish the UX program. It is not part of the UX program, and there is an additional fee. I believe it's $1,200, but if you go to our website, you can get all the information on that. And for $1,200, it's actually a pretty good opportunity, because you'll be able to validate your business concept. They'll teach you, they'll give you coaching and support to help overcome barriers to starting a business. And really, they give you like tons and tons and tons of support if you have a really good business idea that you want to turn into a reality. We also have free Excel training that is available to all of our students throughout the year. And when the Excel training is offered, of course, we'll let everybody know. And so those are just some value adds. In terms of registration, we are accepting registrations for our May offering, which starts next month. The fall begins in September. The full schedule is available on our website. You can go to continue.yorku.ca to register, and the program fee for all 4 courses is $43.96. If you are a York University alumni, you do get an additional 10% off. So just call for the discount code, and then you can apply it at registration time. And then contacting the School of Continuing Studies, again, our website, continue.yorku.ca. We have a dedicated continuing studies advisor. His name is Mike Kosiba. UX is in his portfolio. So if you have any questions after we finish this webinar, please feel free to reach out to Mike at continue@yorku.ca. For registration information, scs@yorku.ca. And then our office hours are 8:30 to 4:30. Right now, of course, York University is closed because of the pandemic, but we are doing online and telephone advising appointments. So that's all available for you. And I think that is all, folks. That brings us to the end of our formal presentation. So we would be happy to take any questions that you have, and I'm going to keep the contact information info up on the screen in case you need it.
Sorry,
So
Marina,
please,
just one thing I wanted to add was because of the pandemic, we're obviously, we have students from all across Canada, which is pretty cool. So the way the clients work is these groups are kind of primarily based, there's a team that's in Vancouver, there's a team that is in Edmonton, and so on and so forth. And we have clients all across Canada as well. So there is a lot of diversity within the students as well as the clients.
That's a really good point. Thanks for that, Rahim. Let's see. Can I register if I'm not based in Toronto since it's online? No, absolutely. Anyone can register from any part of Canada, from any part of the United States, actually, from any part of the world. You can register. The program is completely virtual in the sense that even on the live sessions are done over Zoom. So you don't necessarily have to be physically on campus to take the program. Is there any help with getting a job after the program? Very good question. We are working very, very diligently, and we'll have a career services opportunity for all of our students, and it'll be available probably this summer. So we are working on career services for the School of Continuing Studies for all students.
And do you mind if I just add to that? I think one of the things in terms of jobs, like I've been there, we've all been there. What I try to also teach the students is give examples of, the thing about design is that you are your own brand, and you have to kind of show value for what you're good at and what your superpowers are, right, as a designer. So there's a lot of ways to do it. Like, for example, there's a couple of clients that have actually hired the students to kind of, it might not be on a full-time basis, but it's still revenue coming in, and it's still in addition to their portfolio. So there's opportunities there. But, as you are exposed to things like LinkedIn and, putting yourself out there, I think comes down to how it's actually not as hard as you think it is to find a job. As long as you put yourself out there, you're vulnerable, you're reaching out to the right people. For the last decade, every single one of my jobs have come from LinkedIn, believe it or not, literally for the last decade. Because I just put myself out there, I've created a brand for myself, and that's basically the best way to do it. So I encourage a lot of the students to basically be, it might not be comfortable for a lot of people, but put your work out there, put it on Instagram. You never know who's going to knock on your door, and it opens up a lot of opportunities. So that's probably what I would add to that, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And that actually, there's another question about clients. Like, can a student find their own client for the final project?
Good question. We haven't had that scenario yet, but I mean, longest they can tell me about that client beforehand, I would be open to it. Before the course begins, just so I could vet the client, because we want to make sure the client aligns with the course curriculum, because sometimes, like, the needs for the clients might be different from what we're trying to accomplish. So I do a thorough vetting process to make sure all the clients are on board. They know what we're going to be doing in the next 7 to 8 weeks. But yeah, I'm totally open to it if you present the client before the course begins.
Okay, I have a few questions about format, okay, because some people are asking how many classes during the week are there. So I just want to be very clear, there are no classes during the week. The program is blended, and that means that it is primarily asynchronous. So that means that you are working on the curriculum, okay? You are logging in at your own time to work on the curriculum. You're participating in online discussions that are facilitated by an instructor during the week. Again, they're not live, right? So asynchronous means that things are not live. Then you have live online sessions. There are 2 of them per course, and they're either on a Saturday or a Sunday. Okay, now if it's on a weekend where you need to be away, then you need to really plan in advance, because because these live online sessions are mandatory. You really need to be there. It's going to be difficult for you to watch an 8-hour video and catch up with the material. And in fact, in some of the courses, there are a few quizzes that take place during the live online. So please, schedule things way in advance. All the classes and all the dates, they're all on our website so that you have plenty of notice. If the summer doesn't work for you, then that would mean that you would probably have to come in the fall. Okay. Rahim, maybe, if you want to.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. So to actually give you a tangible breakdown of that, I'll give you an example. So the course that I'm teaching right now, we had a full 9 to 5, and believe me, I try to make it as engaging as possible and entertaining as possible. So we started on March 28th, which was Sunday. The students had their kickoff call last week, and then every Sundays I have a check-in with them. And then on May 16th, the Sunday, May 16th, that's when all the clients will hop on a Zoom call as well as the students, and they're going to present what they've done in that entire engagement. So in terms of my ability, I mean, I'm always on Slack. I'm always answering emails and questions. They're doing the weekly deliverables on the education platform called Moodle. But the flexibility of this program, like Marina mentioned, is the fact that you can have a full-time job and do this simultaneously. So you don't need to like worry about leaving your job or whatever it is, because I know everyone has commitments. I know it's a difficult time right now, so there is that flexibility. As well as in my course, you're working with a team, so you can set times with your teams whenever you want. I don't intervene with that, whatever works for whomever. and then also depending on time zones and all that fun stuff. So yeah, does that hopefully answer the question?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so. There's a question about the UX software. So in the visual design course, in course number 3, the instructor uses Azure. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Azure and Figma. Those are the 2 software programs that are used, and they're all, you don't have to purchase the software. The instructor will run through all of the student, like they have student type software that you don't have to pay for it. Like that'll be enough to do actually to do the assignments in the course.
Yep.
Our assignments are all assignments group or teamwork, or do students get a chance to do solo projects? Yeah, throughout the program, like I know for sure in Rahim's course, he clearly said that it's a team project, but you do have lots of opportunity to do solo projects throughout the program. But I wanted to stress that group work is very important in this field. And Rahim, if you could just kind of touch on the fact that UX designers are working like on with so many cross-functional teams across the organization, that it's important for them to actually work effectively as a group.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to talk about that. So one of the misconceptions about a lot of designers is that, the Airbnb app, the Uber app, was not designed by one designer, right? You're always going to be working in teams. Like I just started a new gig on Monday, and I have a team. They're broken up into visual designers, a project manager, all that stuff. So a lot of people don't really realize this, but you are going to be working in a team, and that's why my course is strategically and intentionally created the way it is for you to understand your team and understand the strengths of your team, just so you have that experience with working with a real client. Because when you get into the real world of working at a design firm or a product company, you will be in a team, right? So one other thing to add to that is the beginning of the course, in terms of Carmen's course, there are a lot of individual assignments just to try to understand your style and just to understand more of that side of design, in terms of even with the prototyping, if I'm not mistaken, there might be a blend of a little bit of group work and individual work, but mine is primarily group work, as well as the one thing that I forgot to mention is the individual component of my course is designing your own portfolio. So the portfolio is really important because that's how you get a job, right? So I have them really, like I said, I help them really understand what is their superpower, what is their strength as a designer. Because a lot of the misconceptions of a design portfolio is, you apply to a design job, and even in the past when I've interviewed people, it's like, I don't really know what they're good at, right? Like design is very, there's so many facets to design. It's not just a generalization, right? You might be really strong in design research, and you might not be very strong at visual design, and that's totally okay, right? Start applying for design research jobs, right? But I want to make sure these students understand that their portfolio is catered around that. So when you work with a client, even though you have a group of 3 people and your output's the exact same thing, in your portfolio, you can basically break out the design research part a little bit more than what your colleague might break out, because if they primarily did the visual design, they could talk more about that, right? So it's really understanding what you're good at, what you want to do, because the last thing you want to do is get into a design job and not really enjoy what you're going to be doing, right? So I want to uncover that as soon as possible in terms of helping these guys figure out, where should you be doubling down in terms of your skill sets, and that way you could also focus on that with your client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And Rahim, there was one question, if you could kind of clarify, because I think there was a little bit of confusion around what the work that our students are actually doing for the website versus actually building it, because we don't want anyone to think that our students are building the website, that they're doing any of the engineering work. So can you?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Sorry, that's a great question. So here's the thing about, every client has different needs. I definitely don't want the students to be coding. I don't want them to be executing, but it depends on the ask, right? So for example, the client that I showed, the architecture client, the kebab guys, and Adam Williamson art, all of those websites were done on a platform, either Shopify, Squarespace, and Wix. And I think that's okay for the students to dabble on it because it is user friendly. It's easy for them to modify, and they have a working product at the end of it. In some cases where a client might have their own developer, they basically create high fidelity wireframes and workable prototypes So after they're done, they basically hand that off to the developer, and the developer can execute on that. So it really depends on case-by-case basis, but the intention here is not to code at all. Unless you have that background and you feel like you want to do that, I'm not going to stop you, but the intention of this course is not to dabble in code. It's more for understanding UX design, the visual design, the prototype and all that stuff, and the research to put that all together. So there is, if you're worried about coding, I do not touch code. I do not want them to touch code because that's not the intention of the program.
Okay. All right, terrific. You know what, that brings us, we're close to the end of the presentation. This was amazing. Rahim, thank you so much for being here today, answering all these tough questions and helping me out. It's wonderful. I hope that everyone enjoyed the presentation. We hope to see you in class in May. And that's it. Stay safe. Thank you everyone for joining us. And thanks again, Rahim.
Yeah, Marina, feel free to share my email. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.